What if I told you that your body has a built-in defense system against diseases like cancer and heart disease, and you can actually train it using food you eat every single day? I know that sounds like one of those overhyped health claims you scroll past on social media, but stick with me for the next few minutes because what we're about to cover isn't hype. It's backed by real, peer-reviewed research into how the human body protects itself at a cellular level. Here's the short version. Every single day, your body is quietly fighting off microscopic threats. Abnormal cells, inflammation, damaged blood vessels, long before you'd ever notice a symptom. Most of the time, your body wins that fight without you even knowing it happened. The question researchers have been asking for decades is simple. Can we make that internal defense system stronger just by changing what's on our plate? Today, we're breaking down 5 foods that researchers studying vascular health, cellular regeneration, and nutrition science have repeatedly linked to disease prevention. And by the end of this video, you'll understand not just what to eat, but why it actually works at a biological level. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lee Health Insights. If you're new here, this channel is run by fans of Dr. William Lee's work on nutrition, blood vessel health, and disease prevention. To be fully transparent, we are not affiliated with him in any official capacity. We're simply admirers of his research who want to make these scientific concepts accessible to everyday people who don't have time to read medical journals. If that sounds like something you're into, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button because we're publishing a new deep dive like this every single week. Today's topic is one of our most requested, foods that may help your body defend itself against chronic disease. We're covering 5 foods, but I'm also going to walk you through the actual mechanism, the why behind each one, because understanding the science makes it so much easier to stick with these habits long term. Let's get into it. Before we jump into the list, I want to spend 2 minutes explaining a concept that ties this entire video together, because once you understand it, every single food on this list will make a lot more sense. Your body is made up of roughly 37 trillion cells, and every one of those cells needs a constant supply of blood to survive. Blood vessels, arteries, veins, and the tiny capillaries that connect them are essentially the body's delivery system. They're responsible for carrying oxygen, nutrients, and immune cells to every tissue you have, from your brain to your fingertips. Here's where it gets interesting. The process by which your body grows new blood vessels is called angiogenesis. Under normal, healthy conditions, angiogenesis is a good thing. It's how wounds heal, how muscles recover after exercise, and how your body adapts to physical activity. But here's the catch. Certain unwanted cells, including the kind associated with tumors, also rely on angiogenesis to survive and grow. A cluster of abnormal cells without a blood supply generally stays small and harmless. But if those cells manage to recruit their own blood vessels, they can grow, spread, and become dangerous. This is the foundation of an entire field of research that has explored whether certain foods can influence this process, either by supporting healthy blood vessel growth where it's needed, or by limiting the kind of blood vessel growth that allows abnormal cells to thrive. Researchers have spent decades studying which natural compounds in food appear to interact with these pathways. To be clear, no food is a cure, a treatment, or a guaranteed prevention method for any disease. Genetics, environment, exercise, sleep, stress, and dozens of other factors all play a role in your overall health. But diet is one of the few variables you have meaningful, daily control over. And that's exactly why this research matters to regular people, not just scientists in a lab. With that foundation in mind, let's look at the 5 foods that keep showing up in this research, one at a time. First up, tomatoes. And specifically, I want to highlight cooked tomatoes, because there's a detail here that surprises a lot of people. Tomatoes contain a powerful antioxidant compound called lycopene. It's the pigment responsible for that deep red color you see in a ripe tomato. Lycopene belongs to a class of compounds called carotenoids, which are found in many red, orange, and yellow fruits and vegetables. But tomatoes are one of the richest natural sources. Now here's the surprising part. You'd think that cooking food destroys nutrients, and in many cases that's true. Heat can break down vitamin C, for example. But lycopene actually behaves the opposite way. The heat from cooking breaks down the tough cell walls of the tomato, which makes the lycopene easier for your digestive system to absorb. Pair that with a small amount of healthy fat, like olive oil, which is common in a lot of tomato sauces, and your body absorbs even more of it. That's because lycopene is fat-soluble, meaning it needs fat to be properly absorbed into your bloodstream. So that jar of pasta sauce, that bowl of tomato soup, or that homemade marinara, it's not just comfort food. From a nutrient absorption standpoint, it may actually be a more efficient way to get lycopene into your system than eating a raw tomato slice on a sandwich. Researchers studying lycopene have been particularly interested in its relationship to prostate health. Multiple population-based studies have observed that men with higher dietary lycopene intake tend to have a lower incidence of prostate cancer compared to those with lower intake. It's important to note that this kind of research shows correlation, not absolute proof of cause and effect. But the consistency of these findings across multiple studies, combined with laboratory research showing how lycopene interacts with cell growth pathways, has made it one of the most studied dietary compounds in cancer prevention research. Beyond prostate health, lycopene has also been studied for its general antioxidant properties, meaning it helps neutralize unstable molecules called free radicals that can damage cells over time and contribute to aging and chronic disease. Practical tip: if you want to maximize lycopene intake, cooked tomato products, pasta sauce, tomato paste, soup, even ketchup in moderation, are actually more potent sources than raw tomatoes. Adding a drizzle of olive oil when cooking tomatoes isn't just for flavor. It genuinely helps your body absorb more of the nutrient. Next on our list, dark leafy greens. This includes spinach, kale, Swiss chard, collard greens, and arugula. If you only take one category of food away from this entire video, leafy greens are probably it, because the research supporting them is some of the most consistent in all of nutrition science. Dark leafy greens are dense with antioxidants, vitamins, and a category of plant compounds called flavonoids and carotenoids, the same family of nutrients we just talked about with tomatoes, but in different forms. They're also one of the best natural sources of nitrates, which your body converts into nitric oxide. Why does nitric oxide matter? Nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that helps your blood vessels relax and widen, a process called vasodilation. When your blood vessels can dilate properly, blood pressure tends to stay healthier, and circulation improves throughout your entire body. Better circulation means more oxygen and nutrients reaching your organs, your muscles, and yes, your brain. This is actually one of the more fascinating areas of recent research: the connection between leafy greens, blood flow, and cognitive function. Some studies tracking older adults have found that those who consistently ate more leafy greens experienced a slower rate of age-related cognitive decline compared to those who rarely ate them. And one widely cited estimate suggested the difference was comparable to being roughly 11 years younger in terms of cognitive aging. While more research is always needed to fully understand this relationship, it's a compelling reason to treat leafy greens as more than just a salad ingredient. Leafy greens are also rich in vitamin K, folate, and magnesium, three nutrients that play supporting roles in cardiovascular health, blood clotting regulation, and reducing chronic inflammation. Practical tip: cooking leafy greens lightly, sautéing in olive oil for a couple of minutes, can actually increase the absorption of certain nutrients, similar to what we discussed with tomatoes, while still preserving most of the beneficial compounds. You don't need to eat massive quantities either. Even 1 cup of cooked leafy greens a day, consistently, is associated with measurable benefits in long-term studies. Number 3, green tea. This is one of the most heavily researched beverages in the world, and for good reason. Green tea is rich in a category of compounds called catechins, and the most studied of these is something called EGCG, short for epigallocatechin gallate. EGCG is a polyphenol, which is a type of antioxidant compound found throughout plants, but green tea contains it in unusually high concentrations, especially because the leaves are minimally processed compared to black tea, which goes through an oxidation process that reduces catechin content. Researchers have been particularly interested in EGCG's relationship to angiogenesis. Remember that term from earlier? Some laboratory studies have shown that EGCG may interfere with the specific signaling pathways that abnormal cells use to recruit new blood vessels. This doesn't mean drinking green tea prevents disease on its own, but it has made EGCG one of the most studied natural compounds in cancer prevention research over the last 2 decades. Beyond that, green tea has also been studied extensively for cardiovascular benefits. Regular green tea consumption has been associated in multiple studies with modest reductions in LDL cholesterol, often referred to as bad cholesterol, as well as improvements in overall blood vessel function. There's also a metabolic angle worth mentioning. Green tea contains a moderate amount of caffeine, but it's the combination of caffeine and catechins together that some researchers believe may have a mild effect on metabolic rate, though this effect tends to be modest and shouldn't be relied upon as a weight loss strategy on its own. Practical tip: steeping green tea at very high temperatures, like boiling water straight off the stove, can actually degrade some of the beneficial catechins and make the tea taste bitter. Most nutrition-focused tea drinkers recommend water around 80 degrees Celsius, 175 degrees Fahrenheit, just below boiling, steeped for 2 to 3 minutes. A simple swap of your afternoon coffee for green tea a few times a week could be an easy habit to build, especially if you're sensitive to caffeine crashes. Fourth on our list, berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. If it's small, colorful, and grows on a bush or vine, it's probably on this list for a reason. Berries are loaded with anthocyanins, which are the pigments responsible for their deep blue, red, and purple colors. Anthocyanins are a type of flavonoid antioxidant, and they've been the subject of a huge amount of research into oxidative stress, which is essentially the cellular damage caused by an excess of unstable molecules called free radicals. Here's an analogy that makes this easier to understand. Think of free radicals like rust slowly forming on metal. Left unchecked over years and decades, oxidative stress contributes to the visible and invisible signs of aging, as well as the development of chronic conditions like heart disease, certain cancers, and neurodegenerative conditions. Antioxidants, or like the ones found abundantly in berries, act like a protective coating that helps neutralize that process before it causes lasting damage. Blueberries in particular have been studied for their relationship to brain health. Several studies on older adults have found that regular blueberry consumption was associated with improved memory performance and slower cognitive decline over time. Researchers believe this may be connected to anthocyanins' ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and directly interact with neurons in regions of the brain associated with memory. Berries are also relatively low in sugar compared to many other fruits, while still being high in fiber, which means they have a less dramatic effect on blood sugar levels. This combination of high antioxidant content, high fiber, and moderate natural sugar makes them one of the most recommended fruits across virtually every dietary framework, from heart-healthy diets to diabetic-friendly meal plans. Practical tip: frozen berries retain just as many nutrients as fresh ones, in some cases even more, because they're typically frozen at peak ripeness. This makes them a budget-friendly, year-round way to get the same benefits as fresh berries, especially when fresh varieties are out of season or expensive. And finally, yes, chocolate makes the list. Specifically, dark chocolate with a high cacao percentage, ideally 70% or higher. Dark chocolate is rich in flavonoids called flavanols, which are structurally related to the catechins we discussed in green tea. Cacao, the raw ingredient chocolate is made from, is actually one of the most concentrated natural sources of flavonols of any food on Earth, even more so than most fruits and vegetables, gram for gram. These flavonols have been studied extensively for their effect on something called endothelial function. The endothelium is the thin layer of cells lining the inside of every blood vessel in your body, and it plays a critical role in regulating blood pressure, blood clotting, and inflammation. Several clinical studies have found that regular consumption of high flavanol dark chocolate is associated with improved endothelial function and modest reductions in blood pressure. There's also research connecting cacao flavanols to improve blood flow to the brain, which some studies have linked to short-term improvements in attention and cognitive performance. Though researchers are quick to point out that more long-term studies are needed before drawing firm conclusions. Here's the important caveat though, and it's a big one. The benefits associated with dark chocolate come from the cacao content specifically, not from sugar, milk solids, or the processed additives found in most mass-market chocolate bars. Many popular chocolate products contain only a small percentage of actual cacao, with the rest being sugar and fillers, which essentially cancels out any potential benefit and adds the downsides of excess sugar consumption instead. Practical tip: look for chocolate labeled 70% cacao or higher, and treat it as a moderate daily habit, something like 1 or 2 small squares, rather than an excuse to eat an entire bar. The goal is incorporating the flavonols, not maximizing calorie intake. Before we wrap up, I wanted to include one bonus food that didn't make the original list, but comes up constantly in this same body of research: garlic. When garlic is crushed, chopped, or chewed, it releases a compound called allicin. Allicin is responsible for garlic's distinctive smell, and it's also been the subject of decades of research into cardiovascular health. Several studies have found that regular garlic consumption is associated with modest reductions in both blood pressure and LDL cholesterol. Garlic has also been studied for its anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties, and some population studies, particularly large-scale studies conducted in regions where garlic consumption is unusually high, have observed lower rates of certain cancers, particularly stomach and colorectal cancer, among populations with high garlic intake. One detail that surprises people: allicin is only formed when garlic is crushed or cut, and it begins breaking down within about 10 to 60 minutes after that happens. So if you're cooking with garlic for the health benefits specifically, chopping or crushing it and letting it sit for about 10 minutes before cooking, rather than tossing whole cloves straight into a hot pan, may help preserve more of the beneficial compound. Before we wrap up, I want to quickly address a few misconceptions that tend to come up in the comments whenever we cover topics like this. Myth number 1: if a little is good, a lot must be better. This is one of the most common misunderstandings in nutrition. Every compound we discussed today, lycopene, EGCG, anthocyanins, flavonols, allicin, has been studied at moderate food-based amounts, not megadoses. Eating 10 servings of berries a day isn't 10 times more beneficial than eating 1 or 2. In many cases, nutrients follow a curve where benefits plateau, and in some cases, excessive intake of concentrated supplements, not whole foods, can even cause unwanted side effects. Myth number 2: these foods will cure or prevent disease on their own. We want to be very direct about this. No single food, or even this combination of 5 foods, is a substitute for medical care, regular checkups, or a comprehensive healthy lifestyle that includes exercise, sleep, and stress management. This research describes associations and biological mechanisms. It does not describe guarantees.